According to Kremlin advisor Yuri Ushakov, a meeting between Trump and Putin might take place as early as next week. United States President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin are set to meet in the coming days, according to a Kremlin official, as a U.S. deadline approaches for Russia to agree to a truce in its war on Ukraine or face economic sanctions. Yuri Ushakov, a Kremlin aide, said on Thursday that a meeting between Trump and Putin may take place as early as next week. A place has been identified, he noted, but it will be divulged at a later stage. Both parties have effectively agreed to hold a high-level bilateral meeting in the next days, as requested by the American side, Ushakov informed reporters. Later on Thursday, Putin mentioned the United Arab Emirates as a possible place for a meeting with Trump, describing it as a suitable setting for high-level discussions. Putin also addressed the possibility of meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy, stating he was not on the whole averse to it. However, he stated that certain conditions should be created before such a meeting could take place, and that the current circumstances were far from ready. Ushakov stated that the possibility of a three-way summit arose during negotiations in Moscow with Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff, who met Putin for the sixth time earlier this week. Russia made no public comments on the planned trilateral meeting. Zelenskyy expressed support for such a summit, saying on X that Ukraine is not afraid of meetings and expects the same brave approach from the Russian side. He stated that negotiations had included 2 bilateral and 1 trilateral format, urging on Europe's involvement in efforts to stop the war. Al Jazeera's Charles Stratford, reporting from Kyiv, said there are rising anxieties in Ukraine about the Trump-Putin summit, especially since Zelenskyy is not anticipated to take part in the initial talks. According to Stratford, many Ukrainians feel Zelenskyy was coerced into a mineral deal during a meeting with Trump in the Oval Office in February. Concerns are growing that Zelenskyy may once again be sidelined as choices are made that directly affect Ukraine's future. Despite this, Zelenskyy has reached out to European allies. He has spoken with French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Stratford reported, stressing that Zelenskyy maintained it is vital to coordinate any kind of process with Europe because he claims that Ukraine is part of Europe. Despite Witkoff's many visits to Moscow since Trump took office in January and promised to end the war, no breakthrough has occurred. Trump admitted the lack of progress, stating, "I don't call it a breakthrough. We have been working on this for a long time. There are thousands of young kids dying, and I'm here to get it over with." The Kremlin termed Witkoff's most recent meetings as constructive and said both parties had exchanged signals but provided few details. Meanwhile, Zelenskyy stated that he had discussed the meeting with Trump and other European leaders. Pavel Felgenhauer, a defense and military specialist speaking for Moscow, told Al Jazeera that there is confusion about what was agreed upon in recent discussions with Witkoff, because in Washington they say one thing, in Moscow they say the other, stated the Russian diplomat. While Witkoff may have broached the idea of Ukraine entering negotiations, Felgenhauer stated that Russia's silence on the subject can be read as a clear denial. Felgenhauer suggested that Moscow is not seeking a ceasefire, but rather a high-level summit with Trump. That's what Putin has always wanted. He wants a conference to educate Trump on why Russia should control a major portion of Ukraine and why Ukraine is an artificial state, he stated. While the agenda for the conference is still being developed, he warned that it is unlikely to achieve real outcomes in terms of a ceasefire. Still, Felgenhauer stated that there is hope in Moscow that the summit would pave the path for improved U.S.-Russia relations. Putin's major purpose is to develop relations with America and put Ukraine to the side, he said. Expectations are still low that a peace deal would be achieved by Trump's deadline. Russia continues to launch air strikes across Ukraine, and Moscow's criteria for ending the war, such as Kyiv's demilitarization, neutrality, and renunciation of NATO membership, are non-starters for Ukraine and its Western allies. Putin also demands Ukraine's withdrawal from Russian-occupied territories, diplomatic recognition of Crimea, and the lifting of international sanctions. Kyiv has always rejected these labels. Meanwhile, the White House has approved an additional $200 million in military aid for Ukraine, which includes help for drone manufacture. In a separate action, Trump signed an executive order on Wednesday slapping 25% tariffs on Indian imports due to India's continuous purchases of Russian oil.